So, after being born royalty in Central Asia and then spending 22 years in Kabul establishing himself, why did Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur then go all the way to India to establish the Mughal Empire? I mean, what gives? Why not just settle in Afghanistan? Hi, my name is Misha and welcome to Tarihi Tales. Today, when you think Mughals, you think India, and we think about all the beautiful architecture and it's an instant connection. But in that day and age, when somebody would say that this Central Asian person is going to set up this huge empire in India, that would have sounded highly unlikely. But then again, Babur's entire story is highly unlikely. So now to understand why he went to India, first, the question is, why did he leave Central Asia at all, right? You need some context. And I have a lot of videos talking about the details of Babur's life in Central Asia because I found that super interesting. And I linked that at the end of this video. So coming back to the question, why did Babur leave Central Asia, right? So I'm just going to give you guys a gist. Babur was basically born in 1483 in a place called Fergana, which is in modern-day Uzbekistan. He was a prince there and he had this unique ancestry where he could claim to be the legitimate heir from two different, very impactful dynasties. One of them from Amir Timur, the other from Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan. But unfortunately, no matter how hard Babur tried, he was not able to set up a stable empire in Central Asia. And especially every time he tried to take Samarkand, which was the OG capital of Amir Timur and the dream of every Timurid prince. Every time he would try to take Samarkand, this guy called Shaybani Khan, who was an Uzbek, he would jump in and take it back. So this happened a number of times before Babur actually decided that, okay, you know what? I need to leave, because by that point, Babur had been left penniless and armyless. And he was really disheartened and he thought, this is the end of their forefathers' empire. So he decided to cross this darya, this river, Amu Darya, with a couple of people that he had which were loyal to him, which included his mother, his siblings, 200 people. That's it. But when he crossed the river, miraculously, he found himself with an army. How that happened and all that, you can find out in the videos about Babur's life, because there's a lot of nitty-gritties that you need to know. So then Babur had an army. And then he went and established himself in the city of Kabul, and he stayed there for the next 22 years. So that was why he basically left Central Asia and set up in Kabul. And for the first 10 years of his life in Kabul, he was really obsessed with going back, and he kept on planning things, and he attacked Samarkand a couple of times. And when all of that went downhill, finally in about 1514, he turned his attention towards the other side, which was India, which is very close to Kabul. Now, there are a number of other reasons as to why he decided to let go of Kabul and go towards India. Why not? If you can't go back to Central Asia, just establish yourself in Kabul, right? But there are a couple of reasons why he thought India would be better. Firstly, we have the economic and political limitations in Afghanistan. Now, Kabul had a poor agrarian economy. It did not produce enough revenue to be able to sustain a stable state. The mountainous terrain and the arid land actually reduced farming opportunities and also reduced land taxes. So one of the incidents which kind of talks about the lack of revenue that Kabul had is seen in Babur's autobiography, which is the Baburnama. He talks about how when he first came to Kabul, he now had this huge army of Mughals to feed, and it's unclear, historians talk about that it's unclear whether Kabul's treasury had much money, but it's assumed that it didn't, because Babur kind of indicates that in his writing, that there wasn't enough money to feed the army that he came with. So desperate to kind of feed his people, one of Babur's first act in 1504 was that he took 30,000 donkey loads of grain from Ghazni and Kabul region. And in his mind, he was taking a small portion of the grain to kind of feed the people that have come with him, right? So what's kind of interesting is that in his Baburnama, Babur basically says that later he kind of talks about this incident, admitting his mistake. He says that he was wrong of taking 30,000 donkey loads because in his mind, he was taking a very small portion of food. But what he didn't realize was that this area didn't create a lot of food anyways. And this act of his had devastated both the provinces of Kabul and Ghazni and the people there. And he really regretted it later on when he found out that he basically took majority of the grain without knowing that this is the total produce. And it's also these kind of things which make the Baburnama a really interesting read, because you never really get to see monarchs talking about their mistakes and admitting that they were wrong. And rarely have monarchs written their own personal diaries. Usually they have court historians. So the Baburnama is a really interesting, kind of a book in the field of history. Now, another thing was that there was a dependence on raids. It was difficult to kind of get the regions under control, so he had to rely on small raids, which he would call chapoons, and he would do these often enough, and that's how he would secure horses, sheep, cattle, grains for his people, and kind of also maintain some control and display his power. And he had to do this constantly on repeat. Like, this was not an easily governable area. Another aspect was limited trade. Now, even though Kabul was a hub of trading, the issue was that the revenue generated from the trade was not nearly enough. Now, Babur talks about the province's total revenue from agriculture, nomads, and trade, which he wrote as Vilayat, Sahranashin, and Tamgha, which it equaled only 8 lakhs or 800,000 Shah rupees. In contrast, the revenue from Agra alone in 1526 was 29 lakhs. Now, Agra is this city in India, right? So the one city had so much more revenue than the entire province of Kabul. Now, there were also some political issues that Babur was facing in Kabul, which kind of led to this ultimate decision. There was a huge resistance to central authority. So as we talked about earlier, the raid thing, so the Afghan tribes would kind of only pay taxes when they were forced by military action. They were kind of they were not submissive at all. So if Babur were not doing these military raids over and over again, he wasn't getting any taxes. And the raids themselves cost money which they didn't really have. Babur basically says that he had to carry out chapoons, the raids, and he was trying to make these tribes into Ahle Mamur, which basically means settled people. He wanted them not to be nomads anymore so that it's easier to take taxes. That wasn't really happening. And just to be fair, Babur really wasn't doing any of this very kindly. It's said that Babur kind of followed in the footsteps of his ancestors, and he would leave minarets made out of human skulls in different areas as like a warning to other tribes, and kind of like a punishment thing like Amir Timur did, like Genghis Khan did. They're both kind of known for such brutality, and Babur kind of mimicked the same thing because that's just their style, I guess, But even with all of this going on, he would constantly be doing this over and over again. So it was back and forth all the time. Then they also had limited control, which basically means that Babur's authority was limited to areas around the city. The more you went into the hinterlands, the less control they had. So again, stability was not really kind of being reached. Babur writes in 1506 that not yet desirably subjugated country of Kabul was full of a turbulent and ill-conducted medley of peoples and hordes, Turks, Mughals, clans and nomads, Aimeko, Ahsham, Afghans and Hazaras. So these were some of the issues that Babur kind of faced in Afghanistan, which is modern-day Afghanistan. It wasn't called Afghanistan then, obviously. But then when he looked to India, he would see opportunity. The first and most clear thing is India's wealth and opportunity, right? So even then, India was really well known for its fertile lands, immense wealth, amazing trade, which happened worldwide. So Babur already knew that, this is kind of a wealthy place. And in the Baburnama, he writes that he values 5 things about Hindustan. Its numerous craftsmen, its refreshing air following monsoon rains, the system of calculation and categories of measures, and the fact that it was a large country awash in gold and silver coins. Its wealth, he pointedly mentions, was arithmetically reflected in numbering systems which included such high values as lakhs and crores, and even greater amounts that were needed to calculate the monetary value of the country's agriculture and commercial economy. Now, the other thing which kind of made India a good option in his mind was that he was getting invitations from these Indian nobles to kind of come in and help them against the current ruler, which was Ibrahim Lodi, another Muslim. So people like Daulat Khan Lodi and Alam Khan would constantly invite Babur to kind of come, and they would say that they would be supporting him in a fight against Ibrahim Lodi. Now, another thing which Babur saw as a pro was military readiness. Babur by this point had a strong equipped army, and the army wasn't just equipped with swords, they also had firearms and gunpowder, which was a revolutionary technology at that time. And he was quite confident that, he can take India eventually. Obviously, it took a couple of times before he was able to, but he understood that he can. The other thing which kind of encouraged him was his early success in Punjab. So some of the early skirmishes that Babur took part in the Punjab region, he was able to take them easily, and he realized that, okay, maybe I can go in further and kind of really take the entirety of Hindustan. So all of these things combined kind of made Babur understand that, maybe it's time to leave Kabul and go towards Hindustan or India, which has a lot of wealth, a lot of opportunity, and also the people there are kind of tired of their ruler right now. So maybe, I'll be a good change. So all of that combined leads to this decision that, okay, I'm going to let go of Central Asia. I'm not able to win over there, okay? And I'm gonna not stay in Kabul because no matter what I do, I'm unable to make it a stable state, and then move to India. But you know what? Babur really loved Kabul because even when he passes away, his wish was he passed away in India, but he wished to be buried in Kabul, and that's where his tomb is today because he really loved that city. That's the place where he, in his life, found some stability. Because as I mentioned, if you read about his early life, my God, I don't think I know anybody who would be as resilient as he was. People would have given up long ago. They would have been like, okay, I'm not meant to be a king. Goodbye. So if you're interested in that part of his life, the playlist is right here somewhere. You can enjoy that. Let me know what you guys think of this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.